Good morning, United States. Good afternoon, Europe. We are about to start, so we just wait. The rooms are getting filled in. There are some seats in the front row, and within a minute, we will start the webinar. Welcome. So, good morning for those who, and good afternoon for those who just joined us. We're about to start. We just make sure we give everybody the chance to install the GoToWebinar client, and we will start within 30 seconds from now. It's a challenging one to count for till 30, but I can manage. So, all right. Good morning, United States. Good afternoon, Europe. My name is Matthijs Steeki, and I'm your host today. Thank you for joining us for this webinar, App3 End of Life, How to Move Forward. So App3 is going to be end of life. This is something that we are hearing for the last couple of years. It's already in the extended maintenance mode. And as per the record, there will be end of lifing App3 in May 2026. I always say what May 2026 is for the large enterprises is what for you and I is the day after tomorrow. So it is sooner than it sounds, right? So what are we going to do with all those app fees? What is going to be the next application strategy for the large organizations? So with that, I'd like to introduce you to our guest today, Greg Lambert. Greg being the CEO for Readiness. Readiness automates the technical challenges in application testing, packaging, and conversation to reduce risk. And Greg is today here with us to present together with Andreas. Andreas, most of you know Andreas, has been with us for the last 2 years after 20 years of being with Citrix, helping the Liquidware team in Europe with the challenges our customers have on the technical side of managing the workspaces. So with that, I'd like to thank you again, Greg. It's an early morning for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
The West Coast. Thanks a lot for joining us. And Andreas, the mic is yours. Take us through what are we going to do after App3 being end of life. Just before I hand it over, everybody's mic is on mute. So in case you have any questions, please use the chat box, use the question box, and we will make sure that all your questions will be addressed today during this call. So sorry, Andreas, once again, thank you, Andreas. Go ahead.
Okay, here we go again.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, good day, everybody. And Morteza was saying, right, May 2026 is when App3 will indefinitely be sunsetted. But there's a date actually sooner in the near future that is perhaps even more important. October 2025 is when Windows 10 will go end of life. Microsoft really wants us to move over into the next iteration of their Windows platform. So we're already cutting that whole timeline of App3 basically short, looking at, okay, if we need to do a major change, that'll need to be finished by October 2025. But there's actually a much more urgent reason to have a look at this. Recent survey has shown that 28% of the data breaches that are currently ongoing are being caused by outdated and unpatched applications. And when you start talking to customers, it's that their biggest fear is not so much the update itself, but what if something goes wrong and we need to revert? If they were able to revert quickly to a previous version, they would be much more willing to upgrade up on a steady basis. And the reason why this is such a challenge is the way we've traditionally dealt with the way we handled our images. So traditionally what we've done is that we've basically said, you know what, we'll take a base image of Windows and then we'll put our patches on there and our group policies, and we do some software distribution. We have some client management tools, but as a whole, we're seeing it as a monolithic approach to the desktop. Now the challenge has become that everything that is monolithic is always cumbersome to maintain. It's always a challenge if there's just one little small piece in that whole stack that needs to be changed. Multiply that with, by now, the amount of different delivery platforms we have for those desktops. And every platform has its own unique way of optimized dealing with applications within such a desktops. And they're all perfect solutions if you just stick to that one type of delivery platform. But once you start multiplying it, it basically comes down to, do I have enough patience? Do I have enough time? Do I have enough budget? Or am I really need to redo all of the same work for each and every individual platform again? What we're really looking for is a much more modern approach to the way we manage the workspace. And Gartner has defined that as well. And they said, you know what, you need to take a much more modular approach. You need to say, okay, you know what, we have this unified endpoint management layer. For a lot of customers, that'll be the likes of the Intune environment. And on top of that, we make modular components that in the end make up on demand the desktops. And that whole vision and architecture that Gartner has designed basically fits nicely with the way we at Liquidware have always designed our solutions. From day one, we have said that there is a delivery platform, and that can either be physical, virtual, or cloud-based. We do not discriminate. On top of that lies the OS, the Windows Desktop OS or the Windows Server OS, either be that single user or multi-user. Again, we do not differentiate between those two. What we do is in the next layer, the security layer, is that we add our context engine. Our context engine that allows us to go beyond just looking at the device or the individual user, but look more and closely about the conditions under which the user needs his applications or he needs to do his work, and what that means from a security perspective or from a user functionality perspective. The fourth layer in our whole solution approach is the application layer. These tend to be very generic forms of the application, but all and each of them in their own individual components without isolating them out of the rest of the environment. Next comes the user environment. And the user environment is so much more than just roaming profiles 3.0 or the way we just do our profile. It's all about how do we manage it? How do we make sure that we fit within this modern scenario and that we migrate users easily, and all of the user settings needed to in order for us to make those generic applications user specific and organization specific. And to top it off, we've defined our endpoint analytics, the monitoring of the environment. And as a whole, this is a dynamic layer of components that will adapt to the requirements of the individual user. Now, while working with customers, what we traditionally do is that we, first of all, always start to assess what is currently there, what applications are actually within the environment, what is being used, and more, and closely combine that with talking with the customer. So what is your desired end state? What is it you really want to move towards? Are you staying with Citrix, or are you staying with VMware? Are you perhaps want to embrace AVD or Cloud PC, or do you want to even go into AWS workspaces? What is the end state that the desktop will need to support? And what we'll do is that we'll then help you translate and basically help you choose your own infrastructure based on the requirements at hand. So we do not force you to go to cloud, or we do not only work in an on-premise scenario. We can work in all kinds of scenarios and even take individual components and let them land within our own infrastructure or in public infrastructure in the cloud. The beauty of our solution is that none of it is tied to one individual tenant. Our solution fits within a multi-tenancy environment, can fit within a more hybrid Azure AD or Azure AD or traditional AD environment. We do not limit our solution to just one. But in the end, we are talking about applications. Modern applications need modern application management. And as I said, one of the things we're introducing is context and granularity. So for instance, does it make sense that the user has access to an application if it requires a VPN, but the VPN isn't there? So one of the things, for instance, we can do is see, hey, you know what? The VPN has just been connected. Now it's time for us to actually show the user the applications that rely on it. But also, if I'm moving around, making sure that they have the right environment settings within their applications. Freedom of choice, making sure that the environment adapts to my personal needs as a user, which also applies to the way we provision our applications. We've made our solution, we made FlexApp solutions in such a way that we allow you to either leverage our client and deployment mechanism or fully integrate in solutions like Microsoft Intune or the corporate store from Microsoft, which goes hand in hand with it. Again, the way you see fit in an online or offline scenario, we will allow and support you to grow your traditional approach into a modern management approach. One of the biggest benefits of FlexApp is that an application will end up in what we would describe as a non-persistent mode. So no matter what happens on the endpoint, the next time the user reboots his machine, the application will revert back to the scenario that it was created for by the administrators, by the packaging organization. So making sure that we have a consistent approach, and that if we upgraded one application, and it turns out that from a functionality perspective, it doesn't fit our requirements, we can easily revert back to the previous edition. Now, another challenge we've heard from a lot of customers is, but application updates come so frequently, how can we keep up? And that's why we've built a package automation as part of the FlexApp offering. A way for you to automate all of the automation requirement steps in order for you to automatically package an application from their installer into a FlexApp. And this could well be to, for instance, bridge or help the transition from SCCM into Intune by making sure that, okay, you know what, I've got all of my install settings in SCCM. Let's extract the information from SCCM, automatically package the application into a FlexApp, and then automatically transfer them over into a Intune package and upload them into Intune, or make them accessible within the Liquidware management console and assign them accordingly. Now, the basis on which application FlexApp is based is application layering. And application layering basically means that the app is installed in its own virtual hard drive. Every individual application lives within its own virtual hard drive. That hard drive is fully transparent to the rest of the layers as well as the underlying operating system. But the magic that Liquidware has added to that basic concept is that we also apply micro-isolation. Micro-isolation for those rare occasions that we still see scenarios in which there is a DLL hell type of conflict on a file or on a registry setting. But we're also embracing, for instance, much more features around zero trust. So one of the things you can do is, okay, I have this virtual hard drive. I want to convert it into a single executable and then digitally sign it so that by the time the executable hits the endpoint can actually validate if it is indeed coming from my organization. And vice versa, as an organization, I can embrace OAuth to making sure that the users of those applications are indeed part of my tenant. Other things we've added in recent releases is the fact that we can cloak applications. So in order for you to understand the benefit of those features is you need to understand that FlexApps can actually be mounted at 3 different stages of a desktop's life cycle. One is during the boot up of the machine, one is during login, and one is on demand. Now, during boot up of the machine is when we typically would add all of the applications that the majority of the users will most likely use. But maybe some of those will not be used by everyone. Now, we can make sure that the apps that you're not entitled to will not be visible to you as a user. So making sure that even though we've optimized the delivery mechanism, we're not compromising security. And that's been our biggest focus in our latest release, making sure our product is secure by design. Now, working with customers over the past 18 months, one of the biggest questions I've always had is, will my application actually work? And this is the beauty where actually Greg comes in from Readiness. So Greg, I'll hand it over to you.
Very good. Okay. Okay, let's see. I'm going to share my screen 2. And so I just do this. Hit screen. Okay. Okay. So hello everyone. My name is Greg Lambert. I get to help out a little bit today with the Liquidware and Readiness webinar. I've got a couple of slides, and maybe if we've got some time, a little bit of a demo. So I'm going to just go here and just talk a little bit about what Andreas has just mentioned. And one of the things, I guess, and hopefully, Andreas, everyone, you can see my screen okay? You know, the Evergreen Challenge, is that showing up okay?
Yes, it is.
Wonderful. Okay, okay. So, I mean, will my applications work is probably not just the one question, but it's asked many, many times in different ways. And I think, will my applications work is probably the reason why we're all moving. We're not moving to Windows 11 for Windows 11. We're not changing our technology or our platforms or hardware for the sake of it. We're trying to get our applications in a more secure, more flexible, and better updated state. And that's really the reason why we're doing almost all of this work. It's because of the applications, and they have to work. And not just the third-party applications, but the internally developed applications, the COTS, or the common off-the-shelf applications. All of them have to work. They have to work together. They have to work today, and they have to work tomorrow. And so one of the things we're now talking about is very much what Andreas has just mentioned before, all that complexity, right? There's now this kind of additional challenge. Instead of that monolithic updates we used to have every 2 or 3 years, we're now having 2 or 3 updates, sometimes per month. We're talking of course, Patch Tuesday, monthly updates, which, you know, it's quite interesting because it used to be like, it used to cause crashes and problems. Then it went quiet and things got, things were working really well. And now Windows updates are starting to cause some problems. Again, because the changes are, one, so profound. We're seeing core security changes, core application updates, core middleware updates, core desktop and OS and server updates, just almost every month. One of the things we're seeing now as well with this particular challenge is with all this, and this fits perfectly in with Liquidware, is that we're seeing components or system components embedded within applications. And of course, you may update your OS, but are you updating the app? And is that legacy or old system component embedded within the app now creating a backdoor or security issue? So we have the Windows updates, we've got patches, we've got browser changes, what used to be an issue, but now less so. So things are getting better, but we're also expected to do more faster with less. So I think the challenges which we're both Liquidware and Readiness are trying to address here is actually 4 pieces. One, the number of nature of change has expanded, the scale issue. 2, we're expecting to be able to make these changes quicker with a better outcome. Things shouldn't, when we make changes, we shouldn't make breaking changes. The quality has to improve. And I think we're also having to do that across multiple environments, so the consistency has to be there as well. All this on almost a continual or rapid update cadence, meaning we're now expected to do changes all the time, almost at any time, for almost any reason. And that reason could be server patch updates or for applications, could be for security changes, It could be after your configuration or an internal update. All these things combine to what we call almost like the change clock of this rapid update cadence. So I guess what I'm really doing here is setting the scene and say it's things are more complex. Some things work better, but we're also asked to do more, and that's what I really call the evergreen challenge. As a result of that, one of the things we tried to do at Readiness a couple of years ago, in fact, was we were looking at all this and we thought, okay, there's going to be a couple ways for this to work. We need to do predictive analysis, and we need to actually do real-time or runtime analysis. And so one of the things we said we also need to be able to do is configure or tune or make our changes to the changes. We're going to have to be able to say, instead of just this today, what about all these different configuration changes? And I'll give an example. So it could be Windows 11 today. You might have to ask about Liquidware MSIX deployments. It could be about Intune requirements. And so one of the things that we've actually created is a dynamic web-based assessment engine that, of course, it captures the intent and content of an application through our algorithmic assessments. We're, through our artificial intelligence and machine learning rules, now working with Microsoft's cognitive sciences group for the just last 18 months, we've now been able to take 50,000 applications to testing and results in that data and be able to start doing some predictions on what's going to happen on the install, update, and uninstall. And of course, actually runtime tests. We actually now are testing all the applications to make sure, and that's one of the reasons why we have the guarantee. So with those three things of being able to dynamically change and do what if scenarios, to be able to actually predict based on all these other scenarios and the results of those thousands of testings, and then actually do runtime testing, you actually get a really good result. And I think one of the key bits here is that you can actually all do this all in runtime or in real time. Just a little quick note about us. We're now just, it's almost going to be at probably closer to 500,000, but the key bits that we focus on are these 4 dimensions. And I think we need to almost sometimes roll back, because compatibility was quite often just focused on, like, I'm moving from an old desktop to a server or a desktop environment to the latest desktop. So for example, Windows 7 to Windows 10 or something like that. But compatibility is still a problem with some applications, and it's not necessarily with the desktop. It could be with middleware, it could be with other components. It's still compatibility is that, will it install and run, right? It's kind of black and white. Does it actually run? And that's a whole series of checks in which you can allocate that readiness sort of energy and time for. But there's a second component, and that's what I call suitability. Is it the right target format? So I think this is where Liquidware comes in so strongly as well, because you have choices. And as Andreas quite rightly said, there's complexity and there's options, there's configuration changes. But now what's best for the app, right? Sure, you can deploy it to this technology or that technology, but what's best for your environment, your users, and your applications? And so suitability is a key question. And of course, and for a lot of examples, one of the things we found is when you can take a look at certain technologies, like some of the legacy AppV, there's a lot of suitability challenges, and we can actually talk and show some little bit about that. But I think with suitability, it's things like, does it install, does it update, does it actually run the entire application? It may start to all the features and functionality available. And as you move from that, now do you have a secure platform? Do you have a secure environment? It's not just whether it's malware or antivirus. Does the application contain any legacy components? Does it contain malware itself? Is it going to break another application? Is it going to cause a problem today? And more importantly, when you're off or away, is it going to cause a problem tomorrow? And quite rarely, again, as we talked about, I feel like sometimes like Andreas and I are really from the same playbook, really, in many ways. It's all about quality, right? If the apps aren't installed correctly and for the same standards in the right way, the right format for that target platform, then it doesn't really matter, because all the other things we talked about, the compatibility, suitability, security, if the app doesn't install, update, or uninstall correctly, according to your technology and your platforms, then of course your app still doesn't work. So it all comes back to that simple question: is will my apps work? So that's where we come in, and that's where Liquidware and Readiness kind of work really well together. And it's a little bit wordy slide. Of course, you can record this, and of course, any questions, we'll be delighted to answer any times. But what we did, we said, so Liquidware and Readiness got together a couple months ago and we said, hey guys, can we have a look at our software? And we looked at the FlexApp technology, and we looked at it and went, actually, because it's layering, not isolation, there's a whole bunch of really good things about that. And so what we did, we updated our questions, the number of rules, and we updated the types of things that should be looking for, which may cause an application to fail to install, to run correctly, to update, and to uninstall. And that was some key bits there as well. We come up with a few challenges that say, with this type of technology, what may cause it to fail. We also built in some automated conversion technology as well. One of the things I found with working with the Liquidware group was the speed of response. We work with a lot of different technologies, a lot of different partners, and the first thing that came through was like, great response. We want some technology or technical answers, bang, next day, which is great. We had a couple of loops where we were actually looking at conversion technology, and we had an absolutely incredible response from Liquidware. In fact, we're able to get our assessment engine and being able to challenge Liquidware integration within a few days, and we had an automated conversion engine because of the simplicity of the Liquidware solution within the same week. So a real kudos for the Liquidware technical team on that. One, being able to respond really quickly, but two, having a technology that lent itself incredibly well to both the assessment and the conversion process. I'll carry on a little bit here. And really just to drive that point home, one of the things we want to do is a little bit of comparison, and if we have time, Tessa and Andrea, we might have a few moments for a quick demo. But one of the things I wanted to show is like, when you're installed AppV, there were challenges, right? I mean, there was a whole bunch of experts trying to get the apps installed. There's a whole bunch of work to be done to get that app to install, to run correctly. And of course, the testing of that was expensive as well. And of course, now what we've done is we have a whole series of checks. This is just the compatibility and suitability checks, right? We've also got quality and some security checks, but this is just one aspect of it. And as you can see, just walking through this slide, there's some real challenges with MSIX. Now, I was fortunate enough to work with the guys in Boston before they got bought by Microsoft for the virtualization for AppV. And we're like, wow, this is going to be amazing. It's going to be so deployed everywhere. Then I go, but we can't get DCOM working, and COM+ is a bit of an issue, and browsers, which can now kind of have been solved. FTAs, file type associations, a bit of an issue. Shell extensions, yeah, we're going to have to work on those. And there's a bunch of other issues. I was like, okay, it's a lot, right? So AppV, we were told it was going to be turning on applications like electricity, just turned on. But actually, there was real work, both making sure the app was the right candidate and then making the changes to make sure that candidate was actually right for your environment. So that was AppV. MSIX, and I'm not allowed to say MSIX because that's a series of golf clubs, but MSIX suffers from the same sort of challenges. It's trying to do great stuff, but there's still limitations. There's still what we call fix-ups you have to do. And that's why when you look at this particular slide, the three columns and the comparison of the layering of AppV and layering of FlexApp, virtualization of AppV, and isolation of MSIX, to get your apps to work, there are some challenges. There's going to be some problems. There is workarounds, but there is work required. And that's one of the things we're looking at this going, actually, this is just going to work for most apps. Now, nothing's perfect. There are challenges, and we shouldn't expect FlexApp to work in all cases. And give me one really good example is sort of kernel mode drivers. No app should be touching that. If your app does, it's probably part of the build. Liquidware has an approach for that. And so what they've done here is a technology that gives you the flexibility, reduces your risk for deployment, and of course, gives you a secure model for the update. And as Andreas quite rightly says, if you're going to make changes, as long as you can back them out, you can make changes faster. And I think that's one of the key bits. When you talk about flexibility, it's not just like, what are your options? It's like, what options when things go wrong, right? It's one thing to make a change. It's another to make mistakes. Mistakes are okay, but just don't make any surprises, right? So just don't have a surprise where you can't back out of it. So I think this slide is pretty important. It tells a real strong story about what FlexApp is trying to do, how it works in an environment. And one of the things we found is actually just working with the group has been great. The technology has worked. This is big challenges, big surprises, right? Here's some code. It worked, right? That's not always the case with all vendors. And of course, we've seen that with Microsoft and all. One of the things I wanted to do is, and in fact, I can, if everyone's okay, I can do a quick demo and actually show some of the differences. So if we're okay with that, and Andreas, hopefully we got a little bit of time.
Yeah, we got about a few minutes.
Oh, excellent. We need about 2 minutes. So one of the things, the readiness solution is all presented through a single web browser. And I've created a very small project that has just a couple apps in it. And one of the things I wanted to show is actually just some of the challenges and differences between MSIX and Liquidware. So just walking through the UI a little bit. Again, this is just we can go to URL. You can create a project just through a simple menu. And you can select some applications, which I loaded, and these are really small, simple applications. But one of the things I can do is you can actually show some of the issues you might have. And what I've done here in the reports, I've actually chosen MSIX. And I think what really drives the point home here is that here's all the algorithmic group sets and rules that you need to get to run MSIX. So this is a lot of things. These have to be right to get MSIX to work. And so when you go through here, then you change your applications and you go through here, and then you say, I want to change this from MSIX to FlexApp. And then you go to reports. One of the things that goes through here, this is the number of changes you need to make for FlexApp. Already we're seeing a big difference, right? And I think that's one of the key bits. Yes, you're going to have kernel mode drivers in that. Most apps shouldn't, right? You have a couple issues here. And of course, once you do that, your apps change. And of course, you're fine. And one of the things we do with our UI is what we say, okay, it's either red, amber, green. These are amber. These can be fixed. In fact, we've got a minor issue with this particular application, and we can actually just ignore it. We don't care about it. So we can actually clear that issue. So in fact, that's all I really wanted to show today. We can talk about other things, but some of the assessments. One of the things you can also do, of course, is make sure that your Liquidware package is automatically converted. That's fully integrated into the readiness solution. You can assess, convert, test, and of course, publish to Intune as well, all through a single set of automations, APIs, and a web interface. And I'll just go back to the deck here. And just to finish up a little bit here, as part of all this, as part of this offering here, we have a free trial. We can assess and convert 25 applications for the Liquidware format. Nothing's required to anybody, just upload your applications. We do all the work. Everything's available via browser, and we can actually then convert and assess and convert your applications for you in the Liquidware format. So, Andreas, hopefully that's okay for you. I didn't get anything too wrong there. Hopefully it sounded okay.
It was perfect, Greg. Thanks. So, Gent, there are some questions coming in. So please, we still have some time. If there are more questions, let them come in. So one of the questions is, Andreas, I think that's more for you, whether FlexApp can handle drivers.
I think, well, the short answer is yes, as long as they are not kernel mode drivers, right? Like Greg said, those are supposed to be part of the base image. And that's what I typically say and advise to all of my customers is anything being updated through Windows Update plus anything security related, which is most of the time is your kernel mode driver or very special end user devices that require such things should be part of the base OS, and all the rest we can easily capture within. So even printer drivers, for instance, can be easily captured within the FlexApp if the app requires it.
Based on that, is there any application? The question is whether you say this should not be packaged at all with FlexApp? Is there anything you can think of?
Office, Microsoft. How does that? And okay, trick question. What about Microsoft Office? What do you think there? That's a biggie.
I think the answer is typically consultancy wise. It all depends. So to give an answer to Greg, yes, we can, for instance, layer Office. The question is, do you want to go through that whole process of layering it each and every time Microsoft brings out an update, which will be pushed out via Windows Update or via Office 365?
Yeah.
So it's more with every application, I always say, is the work worth it versus the end result? Does it make sense from a business perspective to layer the application? By default, I would say anything going through Windows Update should be part of the base image, and the rest is free game to go through FlexApp. And there's a huge benefits for a lot. So recently, for instance, I did a package for a large Autodesk application, which the customer told me typically takes 2.5 hours to just install on the endpoint. And then we turn it into a FlexApp, and all of a sudden that 2.5 hours turned into 10 minutes to deploy, or even just a few seconds when it was a virtual desktop, because it was just attaching the app during either boot up or login.
Great, Andreas. One more question. I think that's more for Greg. What's the biggest difference between MSIX and Liquidware when it comes to conversion?
Okay, so it's an interesting question because there's a number of technical questions, but the short answer is simplicity, right? The biggest difference between deploying MSIX and Liquidware and the conversion process was the simplicity. One of the things I didn't show in the demo is like, here's all the configuration settings, and there's like a lot for MSIX. And of course, when we had the Liquidware and FlexApp, we literally just converted to an XE and it just ran. There's no digital signing. Now there's some always, with complexity, there's also some flexibility, right? So maybe there's a bit of that. But I think it was our speed of delivery. It was the simplicity of the process and the quality of the outcome. So if that kind of wraps up what's the biggest difference. At the current state of MSIX, it may improve, it may change, it's likely to. It's evolving, but the pace of change for MSIX has slowed, right? And so I would say it would be one, primarily simplicity. It just works, it gets it out there. Two, the speed of deployment. And three, the actual quality of the output.
Okay, thanks, Greg.
So Borthijs, if I can add to that, because I think for a lot of customers that live in a hybrid world where they have multiple scenarios, one of the biggest benefits of FlexApp is that we offer the same functionality across all different platforms. So that we do not have different features for Windows 10, Windows 11, Server 2019 or 2022, in cloud or on-prem. So for us, the full feature set is available to all supported client platforms. And I think that's one of the other major differences looking at it from a functionality perspective.
That's good. Andreas, is there a size limitation per packet? Is there, you say 1 terabyte, 1 gigabyte?
Well, so size-wise, we have a limitation that the maximum VHDX can be is 999 gigabytes. So now I'm hoping we don't end up with almost a terabyte worth of application logic per application. Second, there is a technical limitation on the amount of VHDXs you can mount, and that limit lies at 2048. Now, again, I do hope that there is not one individual single or multi-user endpoint that requires more than 2,000 different applications to be mounted. So yes, there are obvious limitations, but those are so far away, and we consistently monitor what is going on in the application landscape and see where and if we can actually adapt the solution. We are in such a rapid pace of development of the product that I don't foresee us running into these limitations, quote unquote.
Okay.
Good. Based on that, there's another question coming in. Is there a limitation in the amount of apps that can be distributed by FlexApp?
No. So overall, like I just said, right? So on an individual instance, yes, there's the limitation of 2048 VHDXs, but as the overall delivery, there is no limitation on the amount of apps.
Good. Let me move on because we got more questions coming in and we have more 5 minutes left. So we have some packages that are just registry keys or file. Would this be okay with FlexApp?
Yes.
Okay. We have a large application with 48 gigabyte footprint. Can that be handled?
Yes.
All right.
Oh.
Can you layer multiple versions of Autodesk products, old and new, and any performance issues?
Yes, as long as they can live side by side on the same endpoint, and we know that we can, with a lot of the Autodesk products, we can actually install them into separate directories, and then they can easily live side by side using FlexApp layering.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
How well does FlexApp handle AutoCAD deployments? You would say well, right? But go ahead.
I think the end result from an end user perspective is once it's mounted, and I would preferably always advise to do that during boot up of the machine. It's all down to the local performance of the machine. How fast is your GPU? How fast is your CPU? We do not add overhead due to the fact that we're layering. This is just something that happens on the storage layer, not on the compute layer.
I think as part of the assessments, we might get a few questions about AutoCAD. We should just do AutoCAD and just make it available now, shouldn't we? Yeah.
Okay. Let me one more question. Yeah, look, more coming in, but we're limited to time. So how long will it take to convert 100 applications to Liquidware FlexApp?
Sorry, I don't think I got the question completely. Can you run it?
Static a little bit. Yeah.
How long will it take? How long will it take to convert 100 applications to FlexApp? Greg, is that something for you?
Yeah, I think that would be something for Greg because they have the full
right.
automation.
Okay. Well, you know, that's a really good question. Thank you. And of course, any conversion it's related to the size of the apps. But one of the things about with the readiness solution is we offer parallel processing. So being a cloud-based, Azure-based solution, converting 100 applications, we could probably do 25 to 50 at a time. And I would say, given it a couple days, and once everything's set up, I would say if you want to do 100 applications, fully tested and documented, make sure they're compliant and secure, it'd be over the weekend.
Sounds good. Okay, the last one, and then we would like to close the webinar. Andreas, Azure ID. Yes, sir. Do we have a limitation on Azure ID?
No, actually, I mean, since we've basically separated the tenant perspective from the management, we do not limit ourselves to only being in one tenant or one AD. So we have an unlimited amount of tenants we can support, each with their own individual AD infrastructure.
Sounds
good. Wow.
All right. And Oscar is asking, do you guys have training and certification for FlexApp? Obviously, we do have training. We have our own certification program where you can carry the badge Liquidware FlexApp certified engineer. So that's the answer. So the more questions, but we do not have. I just wanted to ask the stuff on time that we agreed. So, Greg, you want to say something about this?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a fantastic idea here. If there's further interest, we can do a free application readiness assessment. We can convert an app, probably going to be AutoCAD. That's okay. There's a QR code there. There's a landing page you can go to. Love to hear more about this. Any questions, welcome to answer. But also, most important, this is about the applications. And so let's make it real. Let's get the apps into the system. Let's ask the questions about them, get the details, get them converted, and get them onto Liquidware.
Thank you. So yes, as last thing, we do have NFR keys for our partners. And the other thing was, do you guys, is there any performance problem, which you obviously said we tackled them by having applications being attached on boot, on log on, or click to layer. That's the way we also try to manage the performance. For now, we're on time. I just like to thank Greg for taking the time this early morning to join us. Andreas, as always, thank you for counting on you. This webinar has been recorded, and we will share the recording on the social media. And like always, thank you for joining us and supporting us in this FlexApp journey, in the application journey that we are facing the coming 2 years. And if you have any questions, if you'd like to see the product, if you want to talk to Andreas or Greg in more depth, just send us an email at info@liquidware.com. And till next time, I wish you a great day. I'll see you next time. Thanks.
Thanks, guys. Thank you all.
Thank you.